just a better tool to help you achieve certain things, but you still have to be good at what you do. Like from like take me, I'm not, I've never flown I'm not a pilot. I've never flown a plane. So if you put me in a better plane, that doesn't make me a better pilot. Like you still have to learn what an analogy, really.
There you go.
but
I
yeah,
thought you were going into drones with that. I thought you were going to start talking about drones, but you went into a plane. Like, forget the drone.
Exactly. All right, so welcome to the latest episode of Game Day Glare, and today's episode is basically going to be me and Lance saying "back in my day," and kids these days don't know how lucky they are, because we're talking about new technology and the transition from the old to the new. What's changed? What's better? What's made massive improvements and things like that. But first of all, Lance, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Today we're going to talk about how to stay relevant, right? Because there's been a lot of advancements in technology just in the last couple of years, not considering from when we started 20 years ago. So it does kind of age us a bit. But there has been like a rapid improvement in cameras, technology, software. We got AI now, so there's lots of things to cover. So I'm excited to get started on this. And I mean, you're the tech guy in our conversation, so it's all about you, buddy.
Yeah. Just to clarify, I like equipment that I use. Anything I don't use, I know nothing about. So yeah. Let's. I'm gonna need your expertise on this one. That's for sure.
No, but the thing is, honestly, once you do have equipment you trust and equipment that does a good job, you don't need to swap that equipment right away. And I mean, we're in today's society. Every year, like around now, new cameras come out, new equipment comes out, and you don't always need to upgrade it. Like I'm fine with my camera that's a year and a half, 2 years old. I'm not always looking to upgrade, but every upgrade has its advantages. So today we're going to try and see, is it worth it? What are the advantages? How are people using it to get ahead? And that's kind of really the idea of today.
Well, let me put you on the spot with a question we didn't discuss then, because you inspired me to ask you a question. Like, there's always, what do you say to people who say like, oh yeah, I want to buy an FX3, but I heard the FX3 Mark II is coming out soon, or the A7 IV, but there might be an A7 V coming out soon. Like, should I wait? What's your view on that?
So I'm actually in that position right now, because I have been waiting for an A7S4 for a long time, but eventually get to the point where you realize whatever you buy, there's a new model coming out. Whether it's you buy a new Apple MacBook Pro, the second you bring that home, there's a new model coming out. So get what you need for the moment. Yes, it's nice if you could time it properly and know when something new is coming out, but don't worry about that. I mean, if you go and buy an FX3 today and they come out with a new one tomorrow, your FX3 is still going to give you amazing images and it's a great camera. So get what you need when you need it. Don't get stuck waiting for the new stuff coming out, because there's always new stuff coming out. So you're never, ever going to be on top. Now, you have a plan. Like when you buy a camera or you buy an expensive piece of equipment, have like a 3-year plan where I'm going to use this camera or this laptop for the next 3 years, and then maybe I'll sell it and upgrade then. Because from year to year, the upgrade isn't that big. It's a 2-3 year jump for that upgrade to be worth it. So I say, don't wait. Just go out and get what you need.
Yeah, no, I agree. And also I think that new features, even better features are often like overrated, especially in a sport context. Like, for example, autofocus. Like the autofocus on one camera might be technically better than the previous version or another camera that's cheaper. But in sports, when there's constantly 6, 7, 8 different people in your shot, the autofocus, just because the way they build these things is that if there's someone in the shot that's looking at the camera, it's gonna make an amazing job tracking that person, whatever they do, even if they turn their heads around, things like that. If it's super dark, underexposed or overexposed, the focus is still gonna track them. But that's all well and good when there's only one person in the shot. Like when there's six of them, all of that goes out the window, and you're not even using it. Like it's not working because yes, it might track someone's eye for like half a second, but then it's going to jump to the other guy's eye and things like that. And if you're filming in 120 frames per second in 4K, there's a safe chance that your camera shuts that down anyway. So all that to say that like sometimes you're waiting for like features, or you're paying more for features that you're not even using. So take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think in camera wise, the biggest feature you can get is more resolution. So if you're going from like my camera's a 4K, but really it's 6K downsampled, downsized. So that's good. But now they're coming out with 8K, and your GoPros are 5K. So upgrade for the resolution, not for the little gimmicks. Because even like in sports, like you just used a great example about autofocus. Well, 9 out of 10 times we're going to cheat, and we're going to not have it wide open on a 2.8, say. We're going to put the f4 so we get more guys in focus, so the camera isn't jumping back and forth, because those automatic features, they're automatic. They do what they want, which means you don't have control. And as a pro, you are always trying to have 100% control of your camera.
True.
Yeah.
Which is a great segue into
well, that's why
we're actually talking
I teed it up.
All right, so where are we starting with this?
All right, so let's talk about the evolution of videography. Okay, so compared to where things are now from when we started, like people don't know the struggles that we had to go through early in our career. No, we used to have to take.
I knew this was coming. I told you this is going to be old man get off my lawn type of show.
When I started filming behind the scenes stuff for the Montreal Canadiens, I filmed on a HDV tape. So it was 1080, but you're on a tape. So then we had to take that tape, put it in our computer, transcode all the footage, and then edit. Nowadays, we're leaps and bounds, Everything's digital. You film something, instantly you put that memory card in your camera, you're ready to go. Doing all that made us learn how to shoot properly, made us learn that we don't need to record everything. We recorded what we needed, because if we recorded too much, then that was more tape you had to digitize. So there was some good things that came out of that. But in the last 15 years,
a lot of people lost their jobs, though.
You think?
Well, there's a lot of because going from tape to digital, you need a lot less people in that process. Well, for example, I did. Because when my first, no, that's a lie. I was going to say my first job. Like it was probably my third, and when I say third, I don't mean like, oh, I had one job that I left for another. I mean, I started as a driver, then production assistant. I'm talking about working in television. Driver, production assistant, and then I became an editor assistant, and that was almost a dream, because my dream was to be an editor. And but as an assistant, all you do basically is they give you boxes of tapes, and you digitize them into the editing system. So all you're doing is logging tapes and digitizing and identifying all these different clips. All right, 5 minutes of this, visual of that, talking head of this, and that's all you do. You're just digitizing. And a few years later, well, I left that job before that happened, but basically that entire job was replaced by like a USB stick. Like it's just, it's just an SD card, really. You just pop the SD card into the computer, transfer everything in 2.5 minutes, and boom, you're done. This used to take me like 5 hours. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I mean by a lot of people lost their jobs along the way. The better the equipment gets, the less people you need.
No, but when you're on a big shoot, you have data wranglers, right? Where you give your memory cards, and they still have to put in, back up all those cards, log that footage. But it is a lot faster. You're right. Because when we used to transfer tapes, it was 1 second for 1 second. So whatever that clip was, it took that long to do it. So yeah, you couldn't edit as instantly. Like now, when the way we flag clips and stuff like that, you can go pop the memory card in, and right away what's a good shot, what's a
Yeah.
bad shot,
And
where
it's
you
also
didn't
a lot
always have
cheaper.
that advantage.
Because like
Yeah,
an SD card, let's say you buy a $50 SD card, even if it's $150, that's a one-time purchase, and you use it over and over and over. With tapes, you could always reuse them in the future if you want to. But first of all, it's not recommended because you'd get like drop frames and the quality would suffer. But yeah, you're talking about depending on what type of camera you're using. Like, you can have like better those big better cameras. The tapes could be somewhere between $50 and $100 each. So depending on how long they are as well. So imagine $100 per tape, and you're using multiple a day. Not cheap.
yeah, no. Actually, it's funny. I still have a mini DV camcorder that I kept, and I still have mini DV tapes that are brand new that I never used. But you and I, when we used to work in the entertainment industry, we used to export TV spots on Betacam, and we would mail those out to the TV stations. And then eventually it switched to all digital, where you would just export a QuickTime, you'd upload it on their server and send it over. So it's definitely made the workflow a lot faster and a lot better. What do you think, like in your mind, what was one of the big advancements of all that?
Well, I think, yeah, just like the internet obviously made everything so much faster and more accessible. So I think, yeah, the internet is always going to be the answer to any industry, like really, at the end of the day. Because like when I said I was a driver, that's basically what you just described of like, bringing tapes here and there. Like there was just so many tapes, and I was working in television, so it was like scripts as well for actors and all that. So I was driving around, just bringing all these things, going from a studio to someone's house to another place to a post production facility to FedEx to all these different places because it was just cheaper to hire someone $10 an hour than to try to mail all these things. Or like couriers were a thing. When's the last time you saw someone on a bike like trying to like running down on the bike trying to bring someone some important document? Like, no, you just email it. So
Yeah.
like obviously from that perspective, like a lot changed, and it also made like everything way more accessible. And then when Napster and all these things came along, and then all of a sudden you can get a cracked version of well, not just Napster. It's more the fact that for me, because I started as a video editor, like the video editing system. That's why there were a lot more like post production facilities back in those days. It's like that there was no a production company. There was no production company. Well, actually, worked for one that did, but for the most part, production companies didn't have any post production facilities because they were so expensive. Like you're talking about like an editing suite, which was typically Avid. Like Final Cut didn't even exist, and Premiere not even close. So an Avid system would cost you, because there was hardware involved as well. Like it wasn't just a computer, and so it would cost you like somewhere around 200 grand. So you have to make it worth your while. So no one would buy a suite like that. There would be like a post production facility that would have like 4 or 5 of them, and they would rent them out like by the day or by the hour. So when we went from that to being able to have the same editing software on my personal computer, that to me, it just changed the game completely, because now anyone can edit from home, anyone can work on their own projects, and anyone has the possibility to produce something professional from the comfort of their own house and from their own sort of little limited budget. The same way the music industry used to be exactly the same. You used to have to go to a studio and pay hundreds of dollars an hour just to record a song. And now you can do similar quality from your basement with just a few, software tools and things like that. So from my perspective, like that's especially from a post-production perspective, that was the biggest leap.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, so I remember my first editing system. So it was my personal computer. So I never had a PC. I've always been an Apple guy. I had Apple when it wasn't cool. Like no one, no, but I had an Apple G4, and this thing back in the day was crazy. I had 512 megabytes of RAM. I had a 100 gig hard drive, and I had a DVD burner. And it was like these specs were off the chart. Okay. And I had a cracked version of Final Cut 7, and that's how I started editing, and that's how I started doing all this stuff. And it was pricey for back then. It was like a $3,000 computer,
Yeah.
and this is 20 years ago. So the accessibility of video editing changed the whole landscape. Now, for us, that's how I learned. There wasn't you at school. We were editing tape to tape. We were doing things a lot differently. Now you can go on YouTube and like look at your channel, how many people you help out in this space by teaching them on YouTube how to edit, how to use effects, and that we didn't have all those tools. So I think that is one of the biggest jumps in technology, is that learning is so accessible these days because of the way computers and, of course, your favorite word, the internet, has changed this landscape. Like kids nowadays, or people starting off, you have such an advantage with YouTube and channels like Beyond the Game, and being able to go and buy a laptop. Now, the only thing that I don't like about all this technology right now is everything requires a subscription. And I find that part I don't like. Like, yes, I know DaVinci Resolve, it's a one-time buy. Final Cut X, it's a one-time buy. But 85% of the other software, it's all monthly. So that part I don't like. I used to like where you bought a software and you owned it.
But if you think about it, like DaVinci is the only one really that's dull. I was gonna say that's doing it, for the purely for the game, when because with Final Cut it makes sense for them because they just what they're trying to do is keep you in that Apple environment. Because if you commit to Final Cut and that's what you're used to and that's what you're comfortable with, guess what? You're buying Apple computers for the rest of your life. That's what they're going for. So that's
Yeah.
how they get
Yeah,
a
yeah, for sure.
subscription that's not every month or every year, but it's every 5 years. Pay up. You know what I mean?
But I mean, having the Adobe subscription, I mean, the key is every year we get a new version. I mean, actually, throughout the year, we get multiple new versions. So they are always trying to update it. Where DaVinci Final Cut, there isn't as many updates. So, I mean, you are paying for that service, right? So it's just, and when you're working on your own and you don't have a company and you're not doing this as a full-time job, it's expensive. The Adobe suite is expensive.
No, it's true. And I agree. And also I feel like these updates are just to justify the subscription because most of them I never use. Um, and the one that I'm forced to use because they changed the interface a certain way. And I hate being that guy who's like, why did you change my Facebook? It was so much better before, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to be that person. But like with Premiere, for example, like the way you open Premiere, like, and you get into your projects, it's just way more complicated now than it used to be like 5, 6 years ago. And I just don't understand why. And same thing with exporting, like it's supposed to be like, because they were trying to make it in a way that you can go from the export window to the edit window and stuff, but like it's just, yeah, it doesn't flow that well. It's just sometimes you have to take the L and just go back to what works. But I get the feeling that because it's a subscription model, they have to justify the subscription by constantly evolving to bigger and better things. But these things are not bigger and better sometimes. It's just a lateral move or sometimes even a step back. And that's what's frustrating when you're paying all that money.
And listen, some of our viewers might not know this, but the Premiere that we use today looks exactly like the Final Cut 7 that we used to use back in
Yeah.
the day. They just copied it. And I'm going to tell you guys a little secret. I still use the Final Cut 7 keyboard shortcuts. I should have upgraded by now, but I got so good with them, I just kept it like that. So obviously, I do have my own shortcuts that I keep, but it's all based off the Final Cut 7 shortcuts. So Adobe didn't do that much work when people start switching over Premiere. People switched over to Premiere because Final Cut 7 was being discontinued, and they came out with X, and it was the easiest thing to switch. And then Adobe capitalized with the subscriptions.
There was another thing as well that made me switch anyway. Before that discontinuing thing, it's just because with Final Cut, you had to convert all your files to ProRes. And so if you're filming with a mirrorless camera, you had HEVC or whatever it is, like all those files had to be converted before you could actually use them in the edit. And that would take a lot of time depending on what you shot, obviously. So the idea that I could just, boom, take my footage and work on it straight away. And also it would mean that you would double up because I would keep my raw footage just to be safe. And then I would have all these files that I'm using to edit. And ProRes are pretty big files. So it would take so much space. So the idea that I could just have those raw files that are much smaller and they would work fine and instantly, that was a huge difference.
There was a lot of transcode time. So I still have an old iMac. It's like a 2011 iMac, and I still have Final Cut 7 on it. And I actually opened it up a couple weeks ago, that computer, just to see, because I actually have a FireWire 800 port on there, and I
Oh
needed it
yeah,
for something,
yeah.
for an old hard drive. So yeah, I still have it, and it still works. Now, it must be slow as hell, but it still works. So anyway, off computers now. Look at the jump now there's been in cameras from 4K to 8K to gimbals to drones. Like, technology has helped us as sports videographers get shots that we can never imagine getting before. Like, when we started, if you wanted a nice smooth shot, you would have to get a Steadicam rig, and it was a big setup. Now, for $1,000, you can get a top line gimbal, throw your mirrorless camera, and get these amazing shots. So what do you think one of the biggest technology adjustments in camera wise has been that's helped you in your career, or lately?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think like for cameras, to me, because well, I don't know if I said that off air or in the show, but like to me, like sometimes, well, yeah, the more I'm like, I don't trust auto settings and AI and all these things all that much. It's not that I don't trust them, but it's just if they're not gonna do what I want to do, then what's the point? Like I'm the one filming, I want things done a certain way. So to let the camera decide on things and they end up not being what I want them to be, like it's not the way I like to do things. So the more the camera becomes intuitive and all these things, that's not really for me that all that much. So that's not something that I'm, that gets me excited about a new camera, for example. But what I do like is the fact that now you can have a lot more going on in one single camera. Where like because for example, if I think of like my first, it wasn't a mirror, it was a cinema camera actually, technically, look, but it was my first coming from just using little Sony camcorders with the Canadians, for example. And when I moved to Australia, the first camera that I bought was this Panasonic AG something. Can't remember the model, but it was like, yeah, a cinema camera. But with that camera, just like filming in 60 frames, well, 50 or 60 frames per second, automatically autofocus would be shut down, audio would be shut down. Like you would lose a lot of things. Like it's not like the camera could handle a lot of these like cool settings simultaneously. So you're always choosing like what about, well, you could still film, but like, yeah, I'm sacrificing audio, or now I have to shoot in manual focus, like all these different things. So now you can have a much smaller camera that can like record audio and film at 120 frames per second, that can also, have autofocus, that can also have stabilization. So the fact that these little cameras can do all these little things simultaneously, that to me is probably the biggest, because just filming like 4K 120, like just, I don't know, I want to say 6 years ago, maybe, like that was, you need to drop at least 15 grand on a camera to be able to get that. So now the fact that you can now get it with a small mirrorless camera, that's pretty, yeah, that happened pretty quickly.
Yeah, because when we started, I remember using what was it, a Canon 5D,
Yeah.
and you had no audio. You had to have a audio recorder and sync it up later. And we used to use
Yeah.
Pluralize to sync our audio. Nowadays, my camera does it all. I can have a mic. I can go in Adobe Premiere, press synchronize, boom, it's done instantly. Where there used to be so many more steps. So obviously, these cameras are multitasking better and better uh, with every model. Now, there is some strange things I find though. So, say if you take the FX6, if you shoot at 120 frames per second, you have no audio, which I find weird. An FX3 can shoot 120 frames with audio, but the FX6, what you're paying double the price for, doesn't. So some cameras will add some features and take some out. I guess it's because of their chip or because of the technology in the camera. But that I find strange. Like you always expect the lower model to be able to not be able to do stuff that the higher model.
Yeah. Well, I think like I'm not an expert. Don't quote me on this, but I think like yeah, because there's so much more information being recorded in the FX6. Like if you have too much, then yeah, it's just too much for the card to be recording at a certain speed. So you have to let go of certain things to if you're gonna push up the the quality. So yeah, something's got to give. It's like the same thing with overheating. Like the reason why some cameras overheat more than others is like if you got two cards, if you got this, if you got that, like there's a lot for the camera to manage. So by having only one SD card, by having a, taking like little things away means the camera doesn't work as much and therefore it doesn't heat up as much. So like it's picking your battles. That's why there's no such thing as the perfect camera, unless you've got 50 grand to
That's it.
spend.
So what equipment would you would say is essential for staying competitive as a sports videographer? Like a must have.
Well, define competitive.
So say competitive people in your niche, like you're going to do a reel. What kind of equipment are companies expecting you to have when you're working for a sports team?
Well, I think for me anyway, I think let's say you've got a ZV-10 Mark One. I think you've got the perfect camera to learn, and also to do a decent enough job, whether it's school, small clients, and by small I mean just individuals hiring you to make videos for them, things like that. Once you get at a more professional level where you're working for a team or a business or something like that, um, I'd say the Mark II. Honestly, just the ZV-10 Mark II for me is definitely good enough to do that. Especially if you've used a Mark One or something of that level before, and you now are comfortable managing things like exposure and focus, and you know how to do these things properly. Because that's the other thing. Like some people just jump to a higher model and think that because they've got a great camera, then there's the camera's doing all the work. Basically, it's all going to look good because the camera's expensive and is that good. But there's still work to be done. It's just a better tool to help you achieve certain things, but you still have to be good at what you do. Like from like take me, I'm not. I've never flown I'm not a pilot. I've never flown a plane. So if you put me in a better plane, that doesn't make me a better pilot. Like you still have to learn what an analogy, really.
There you go.
but uh,
I
but
thought
yeah,
you were
so
going
that's
into drones with that. I thought you were going to start talking about drones, but you went into a plane. Like, forget the drone.
exactly. But yeah, like what I mean. Like just because I'm a good driver on my car, like put me in an F1 doesn't make me better. Like if anything, I'm just gonna look worse. So yeah. So all that to say that I think a budget camera is great for lower level sort of clients and stuff, and then once you get to maybe a higher tier, I'd say yeah, the ZV-10 Mark II or an A7 IV or even like an A7C Mark II or the A6700, cameras like that, which can, they're not perfect. They all each have their limitations, especially the ones that have like an APS-C sensor, but they're definitely good enough if you know how to use them and you match them with a good lens to get the job done for sure.
Well, what's nice that Sony did with the new ZVE10 Mark II is they actually use the same batteries as the FX30, the FX3, the A7 IV, which is nice. So that was a big upgrade, and it's definitely a great starter camera. Me personally, I would prefer the FX30 only because I find that little camera is a workhorse. You don't have to worry about overheating. I've seen that camera run all day in 90-degree weather. It is a higher price point, but I think it's worth it for the peace of mind. You know, you're not going to have any technical issues. Now it still is APS-C, so I would prefer a full frame, obviously, but I think it's great to start with that, and then you can build up and get the bigger camera after. It has Cinetone, it has S-Log3, it does 10-bit, and for me, I think it's a great B camera for later on when you establish yourself and you build a kit and get a full frame. That FX30 is a perfect B camera. So I haven't used the new ZVE10 Mark II like you have yet, so I'm a little biased. I've only used the FX30. So that's why I prefer the FX30. And I like the fact that you could, put a handle on it right away. There's a couple of little, you don't need a cage. I would still put a cage, but you can kind of, it's ready to go out of the box right away.
I'm the same as you. Like I would prefer the FX30 because it's a full package. It's got everything. Where the other ones are all sort of missing a little thing here and there. The only thing that the FX30 is missing really is the full frame sensor, but everything else is pretty much ready to go. But it's funny you mentioned that because one of the main things is obviously the fan and overheating sort of concerns. But actually recently, yesterday, Ulenzi, my friends at Ulenzi, or my friend, I should say, at Ulenzi reached out, and there's a new version of their cooling fan that's come out, and they're sending it to me, so I'm going to be testing it. And apparently, there's I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but like heat. Like the heat, like I can't even spell it. Like,
well, you could see. I think I've seen online. So it basically shows you when the heat's getting reduced. Like it shows you the temperature dropping. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, there's that. But like, just the heat comes out like in an easier way than it used to. Like these things that you put like on computers for like the heat to get out, like this dispensation or something like that. So basically, the heat comes out better, and also there's a battery pack that you can buy with or without, but there's like an extra battery pack that you can put on top of the fan. So basically it makes the fan last longer, which I think for sports is probably a great thing because that way, it lasts a lot longer and you don't have to worry about the fan sort of dying mid-game. But, I'll need to test it and see how long it actually works. But yeah.
So even the old model, a month ago, I was filming a corporate in a laundry facility, and it was hot. It was hot, hot, hot. Like I was sweating like crazy, and I filmed for about an hour and a half, and my camera actually overheated. So what I did is I turned it off. I got the Ulanzi fan, I put it on, and within 5 minutes I was back up and running. And then I finished my shoot another half hour, and I kept it running the whole time. So they work. And for my camera on the A7 IV, it worked. Now my camera is only overheated twice, but both times my camera overheated, I was overheating too because it was extreme conditions. So it wasn't like it was just the camera. I was sweating like crazy too. It was super hot. So except for that, I've never had an issue with overheating camera except under those extreme conditions. And honestly, I think it's a great little tool to have. Now, with the cinema line, the FX3, FX30, that built-in fan is there for a reason. You won't have those overheating issues, but that's why you're paying a higher price because you have that peace of mind built in.
So what's our next? Are we talking about AI yet? Are we there yet?
No, not yet. Not yet. We'll go a couple more things about equipment first. So what about like the advancements with drones and these like mini gimbals? I know you don't have much experience. Well, you don't have a drone anymore, but have you ever seen the DJI Pocket 3 that basically replaces your gimbal?
Nah.
No?
Is
so
that
basically
one of those
it's
little action cameras or?
Yeah, it's like a handheld action camera, but what it is, it has the camera of the drone with a gimbal on it, and you have a flip screen so you can go vertical or horizontal, video, and basically it's replacing people's DJI gimbals. Now, this is something that I'm actually thinking about putting in my camera bag because I've watched a lot of videos on it. Actually, a lot of people do some really cool car reels with it. But these little tools are making these shots more accessible, and it's making your camera bag lighter. You ever look into any of these things, or no? You just don't. You just mirrorless all the way. You'd rather have your big gimbal and your mirrorless camera.
Well, I don't really use gimbals anyway, so it's not like I'm trying to make my cameras more stable and stuff. But um, no, I think the only time I did buy, what was it called, the Insta Go 2 or something. Like it was like a small little thing that you can attach either on your chest. It was like a medallion thing that would clip. It was like magnets, or you can put it on a cap or something. But yeah, I bought that thinking I can do some behind the scenes shots when I'm filming my YouTube videos. But then I ended up getting my FX30 and using that mostly on the tripod, just putting it there and filming me. And just the quality is better. It's not distorted. It can, survive low light conditions. And it doesn't really clash too much from the footage from my camera. So I just never look back. And the Insta Go 2 is probably in one of those drawers behind me. But I'm not big on, because even like gimbals, I only use gimbals if I'm doing like a media day, but on game day, I'm not. Yeah, it's just too much trouble. I'd rather be inhaled and be able to do a bit of everything. If I had like it also depends on access and stuff. Like if I was an employee of a team and my office is in the building and I can just bring things, just do a few things in pregame and then bring them back, and like, yeah, I would probably use a gimbal a lot more. But freelancing and coming in for just one game and having to bring all of my stuff, and just, yeah, you don't want to, and depending where the photographer's room is, which I don't never always have access to, but if I do, like, it's not always convenient to get to it and go back to your camera position. So yeah, you just pick your battles. So for that reason, yeah, I don't know much about gimbals.
Well, that's why I'm looking to upgrade to this Pocket 3. Well, it's not an upgrade, but it saves you time. You don't have to have your second camera ready on your gimbal, or balance your gimbal ahead of time, have it ready to go, because we've all been there. Before you leave for a shoot, you balance your gimbal, you have it all ready, you take your camera off, you put it on the shoot, and guess what? Some settings moved or something's happened and it's not balanced anymore. So I just think it could be a cool thing. I'm going to test it out first, but it could be something cool to add into my bag. Now, obviously, just because it's lighter, how will I feel using it when I'm supposed to be a pro and I'm holding this little tiny camera and I'm doing all these movements with it? I don't know how that's going to be, because, as a videographer, I'm self-conscious sometimes of just using my iPhone because I feel like it's not pro enough. Like, I need that camera. I need that heaviness. I need to feel like have that shallow depth of field. I need that good shot, where your iPhone doesn't always do that. So will this be similar to that? Maybe, maybe not. I'm comparing it more to my drone, which when I shoot in D-Log, the shots are really, really good. So I'm really, really happy with that. So I'm hoping it kind of goes down that same route. Now I'll have to test it, but it's definitely something that's caught my eye.
Well, let me know how you go. Are you bought it yet?
No, not yet, not yet. And there's another thing that I'm interested in buying, adding in my bag with it. So there's two things that I'm looking to buy at the same time. Now, this is another thing.
It's called cough syrup. Just
Yeah, I know. I've had this cough for like a week. I had this for a week. All right. So the other piece of equipment that I'm looking to pick up is the DJI Neo. Now, have you seen this? Have you heard about this, E? What it is, it's a vlogging drone with no remote. The buttons are on it. You pick your subject, and it just follows you.
Okay.
Now, do you think this is something you could use for your YouTube channel?
I'd love to. I'm not too sure the games people at games would allow me to, but yeah, it'd definitely be good to have a camera following me around that I don't really have to manage, and it's sort of dynamic and fun to watch. But there's layers to that. Because, well, first of all, at a sporting event, a professional sporting event, there's no
No,
way
there's no
they're
way.
letting me do
No.
that.
But before and after, maybe.
Yeah, even then, it becomes a conversation, and yeah, it's a whole thing. But also with drones, like, people underestimate how loud they are. So if it's just for visual, fine. But for vlogging, I'd say there'd be a big background noise in that video.
No, so this drone comes with the DJI mic too. And you hook up the mic to you, and it's picking up your audio, it's recording your audio right to it.
Yeah, but still, like those little.
It's small too. It's like I don't know. It's like the size of your iPhone.
Have you ever been snuck up on, like, by a drone, and
Yeah,
like,
I sneak
it's
up on people
coming?
all the time.
Yeah, but
That's how
it's
I spy on
coming.
my
It's not
neighbors.
the yeah. It's not like you're like, oh, and I didn't hear that coming. Like, you can hear that thing coming a mile away. Like,
Yeah,
so
I guess I
yeah,
didn't think
just
of that.
because you got a lapel mic doesn't cut off all the noise that this thing is doing. That's my point is more that, like, yeah, the audio would not be that great.
So it'd be
But
more for a second camera angle, kind of.
yeah, if it's a visual thing that's just like following me around as I'm filming, that'd be great. But also the other question becomes, how good's the battery life? Because, like, for the drones that I've used, you know, after 20 minutes, you're sort of on your toes, and you don't want the drone to be in a dangerous sort of situation, because it's gonna have to come back soon. So with this thing, if I'm filming, doing my thing, I'm working, am I always conscious of the battery thing? Do I have to put like a timer on my watch before it sort of dies mid game while I'm working and I can't really take care of it? There's all these things that you need to consider.
So it has a 40-minute battery, and
Oh,
it's
that's good.
135 grams. Okay. Now it has guards over the propeller, so you're not supposed to get hurt. And you can hook it up later on to a joystick or a remote if needed. So it does have stuff. Now I have this whole plan. Okay, this is why I want it. I want to do the video where you wake up in the morning super early and you go for that jog, and it's following you while you're jogging. That's what I want to do with it. Okay, for these like motivational videos and to get myself into shape. That's what I'm thinking about now. We all know this is
So
going to
who's
happen.
going to play you in that video?
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, that's what it is, and it has like built-in internal storage in that. So it's definitely something that caught my eye. So there are two little things that I'm thinking of adding to my camera bag after I test them to see if it's worth it. I think the gimbal is probably the little pocket is probably something that is going to be more useful than the Neo. But I definitely think the Neo is cool. Like, I definitely think there are some potential on it. Like, say if you, I don't know, you go paddleboarding for the day or something, you can put that on and it can follow you. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We're saying the same thing. There's a lot of cool things you can do, but how many of them are you actually gonna do? That's the question.
We'll say that for another episode, okay? Once I buy it, we'll see who could do the more stuff with it. Okay, I'll lend it to you for a week, and we'll compare footage to see how active we are.
But that's the thing with all, people who buy too much gear too quickly. That's their main sort of takeaways, that had so much great expectations for this thing, and then it ended up sitting on my shelf. I've used it twice, and now I'm selling it for half the price. That's that's the circle of life of videography gear in a lot of cases. So with this thing, that would be sort of my concern. And then, to be honest, like I said, I'm the type of person that I like what I use, and I use what I like. Everything around it, I'm not too concerned with, to be honest. So I'm probably the wrong person to get people hyped about those sort of things.
Listen, when I send you my jogging video, you're going to be like, man, I want one of those. I want to jog with Lance. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I definitely think it's cool. I mean, I think it's in the right direction that, you could just program it. It locks onto somebody and it follows them. So you don't need like the remote. It kind of, I guess it's using a bit of AI where it's just tracking you itself. So I think that is all technology that's on the right way, because even when I have my RS3, it can only track somebody if I have my Raven Eye, if I pick them, if my Raven Eye is plugged into my camera. Like there's a lot of steps that go into it with a regular gimbal, where I feel like this little drone or even the Pocket 3, when you just draw a square over somebody and it follows them, like I feel like that's some good technology. I feel like that's something that is definitely useful and definitely makes our job a bit
Well, I think
easier.
I had that in one of my older drones though. I had like the little Spark, which was like a super small. Well, back then was considered super small. I think I could do the square thing where it would follow that person, but it's probably much better now. But um, but yeah, I think those features would be awesome if you're making a lot of training videos and recruiting videos, and you're filming someone, sort of, yeah, yeah,
Day in the
training,
life.
running, doing like sports, and all those Tom Brady videos where you see him passing, doing like little passing drills and stuff like that. Like that would be ideal for that for sure.
Well, you're going to see all those videos, but with me in it soon, okay? Because that's what I'm going to
Nice.
do with this. I'm gonna
Lance
purchase
Brady.
this, and then I'm going to show everybody how athletic I can be and how motivated I can be. All right. So now let's
Nice.
get into your favorite topic, what you always bash, AI.
Yes.
E loves AI.
Oh yeah.
He loves it. ChatGTP is his favorite thing in the whole world. So why don't you tell our viewers how come you love ChatGTP so much?
GTP, isn't it GPT?
No, GTP.
Hmm? Chat GPT.
GPT. Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
GPT. I was saying it wrong. See?
I've been saying it wrong all this time.
GPT.
Uh, yeah, so yeah, no, I'm not like, I think I definitely said that to you off air. Like, I'm not a big fan, just because, to me, especially if you've used Chat GPT, you recognize it straight away when other people use it. Like it's a formula, and it's normal. That's what computers do. It's a template. It applies like, prompts, and it just reacts to it in a way that is convenient and is most likely gonna do what you want it to do. But to me, that ends up looking very generic, and of course, you can play with it and change it and make it a bit more personal. But if you don't, I can definitely see it. And every time someone writes something with Chat GPT, I can tell straight away, and that applies to a bit of everything. Like, when it comes to like editing, for example, like I know Premiere, you can remix audio, you can do all these different things, and sometimes it's a case by case, honestly. But for me, just sometimes it just feels like what AI does, like the final result is the result of a human being going for, all right, how can I do this in the less amount of time possible and still get a decent enough result? That's what I would compare it to. And that's not personally what I'm going for. I'm trying to be better than that. So when I use these tools, I feel like I'm just basically choosing convenience over quality. And not that it's always doing something disappointing. Like I said, sometimes there's certain situations where it's definitely going to be helpful and it's saving me time and it's doing a great job. But for the most part, it's doing an okay job, a sort of like subpar type of end result. And I'm like, no, not subpar, I'd say like above. um but yeah, I'm just, do I wanna, is that my goal? And then not really. And would spending an extra 10, 15, 20 minutes on that thing get me further than that? Probably. So let's just do that. But there are some things, I'd say probably for me, my biggest use of AI is, and even then there's disappointments, is Photoshop. Like, generative fill, is that what it's
Generative
called?
fill, yeah.
Sure, yeah. So like, for example, if I'm making a thumbnail, there's a picture of me, or usually like a screen grab from my video, but like I'm dead center, and I want to have a bit more dead space on the side so I can add like a few words on my thumbnail. I can move myself to the side, and let's say there's like the field, or the crowd behind me, like, and just from like a little sliver of the edge of that screen, I can just create the I can fill the rest of the screen just by it seeing like the end of my screen and just like create a fake crowd behind me that just seamless transition from the real photo to this part, and then I add words on top of it. So it's like from that perspective, it's great. If I try to do this thing where it's like, oh yeah, add the basketball or add this thing in my, that always looks very well, not always, but 9 times out of 10, the object that I'm trying to make the AI tool in Photoshop like add to my image always looks a bit cartoony, deformed. It's just weird all the time, and I stopped. If you go back to some of my videos, I'm in this room, I'm filming at a different angle, and there's like I've got these sound panels on the wall, and one of them I replaced using Photoshop. Like basically, I cropped my shot, and then the sides were just a still from a screen grab, and the sound panel, instead of just being this boring white, it's like there's just a design basically a make, because I was like, oh, maybe I can replace that by something more like sports, having like a poster of Michael Jordan or something sports. I didn't want to be that specific, but I wanted something sports related, and just it would never come up. Like no matter what the prompt I would give it, it would just look completely ridiculous. I tried a windows weren't that bad, and then there was this artwork thing that looked okay, but it was just a bit of a mess because if I start moving my hands, then it sort of yeah, the whole thing falls apart. And I'm like, it doesn't even look that great anyway, so I stopped using it. But so yeah, all that to say that I'm not a huge AI guy. I can see why certain people will use it in certain situations, and I appreciate how it's integrated into the cameras, for example, to make them better at certain things. But me personally, like I get emails from AI companies every day, like asking me if I want to promote their latest video editing platform that's 100% online, and you can just use AI to edit your videos, and you just drop the footage and it makes amazing results. And it doesn't, like it's it's very basic, you know, average at best kind of edits. So I'm like, is that well? Do you really think that on my channel I want to say, hey, stop being creative? All you have to do is just use this AI thing, and it's gonna do a basic job. That's yeah. It doesn't look that great, but at least you didn't have to put in any work. Like if that's what you're going for, if you just want something quick put together because you filmed your son's game and now you've got like 2 hours of footage and you just want to quickly put it into something that's watchable in 5-10 minutes, and that does the trick for you, then by all means go ahead. But that's not what my channel is about, is not, and that's not what my job is about. So yeah, for those reasons, I'm not a big fan, and that's the end of my part of the debate. Now to you.
I love AI. I think AI is amazing. No, I ChatGTP I use for brain dumps, where I have ideas, I have a shoot. I'd be like, I want to get this, this, and this. Can you help me write up a shot list? And I'll keep it on my phone as like a checklist, stuff like that. I think it's really helpful in that sense. For writing posts, I feel like you have to give way too many prompts to get a post that you really, really like. I do find it's good at replying back to emails. So, like, say if I have an email thread and I want to reply back, I'll put it in there and I'll write out what I want to do, and it always seems to write a better email than I would write out. So that part's good. Sports videography, though, yeah, just brain dumps and shot lists and maybe a couple ideas or that, but it's limited. You can tell it's still a robot at this phase. Now, there's other AI stuff that's interesting. So there's the Captions app, or there's Opus Clip, which we've dabbled in with our podcasts, where we put in our podcasts and it kind of cuts up clips. Now, it does the titling very, very well. A lot of times I have to go in and correct words. Like it doesn't understand the word "e."
Yeah.
It always writes "he." And it doesn't cut out the dead spaces. So we still have to go in and re-edit the clip. So it saves time, but it doesn't save time. The captions one, you're supposed to be able to put in the clip and it edits everything for you. So it puts in the backgrounds with
Yeah.
drawings, all that. Now, the
There's
first
another
time
one
you
called
throw in
the
a
script as well. Does that?
yeah, the first time you put a clip in there, wow, it looks good. You're like, okay, this is cool. But then you realize you can't really change things in it. And when you do change it, it doesn't really work properly. And if you do like 3 or 4 clips, they all kind of look the same. And like you mentioned before off camera, it's more of a template that they use. So it's just an editing template. So they have like say 5 templates and they just rotate between those templates. So eventually you're not very creative. Now, I think if you just want to post one clip and you rush for time and you don't want to be creative at all, then that's probably for you. But if you're trying to do sports videography and you're trying to put your creative foot forward, then these AI things aren't really saving you time. If anything, they're going to cost you more time because you have to put a lot of work into them to get exactly what you want out of them. Now, we're lucky being video editors for as long as we have. It's faster for me to edit the clip myself than to put in all these prompts and put it in AI and get them to do the edit. Now, the one AI software that I feel was a game changer for me was the Adobe podcast software that's online, or you can have it now as a plugin in Premiere that cleans up your audio. For a one-on-one interview or a mic'd up player, wow, it does an amazing job. Now, you cannot trust it 100% because it will throw in a random word or a random sound effect from time to time because it has a hard time when there's more than one person talking. So that's the only caution I would give with that. But for like when I'm doing interviews with people and that, I'll throw it in there. And what I'll do is I'll keep the original on one track and I'll put the AI one underneath and just lower the original one. But I still want that original soundtrack just because it does sound a bit robotic. It does sound like you could tell that it's been clean. So I want to capture their real voice as much as possible. So that's how I use AI. I do think it's really interesting. I do think that there are some cool technologies advancements. Like I drove my friend's Tesla the other day. Well, actually, I didn't even drive. I just sat in the front seat and the car drove us around, and it was amazing until it drove over the sidewalk.
Oh,
Now
really?
it drove over the sidewalk because it was like a bike path, and they were both black, so the camera couldn't tell the difference between the bike path and the street. So we took it off the autopilot, and then I auto corrected it after. But I mean, there's some cool stuff happening, and it's weird when you're sitting in a car and it's driving you a place, and you're not doing anything. You just get to kind of talk to your buddy and stare at the road. It was cool, but I'm not ready for that yet. Like I was nervous the whole time. So that's how I feel with this video editing stuff too. Is I want to have control. I want to be able to do what I want to do. I want to make sure that I'm putting the best material out there that I can. And I feel like the AI isn't there yet. Now, will it get there? Maybe. But I think that's where we have the advantage in sports is you're still going to have to go and film those sports and capture those close-ups and capture that angle. Robotic cameras, stuff like that, they're not going to be able to capture what you capture with your mirrorless, getting in nice and close and that. At least not right now until Elon Musk releases his new robots that can maybe then do our video camera work. But for now, I think we're safe. I think we're safe. I do think that AI is cool. I do think it is every day evolving. I just feel like for what we do right now, it's not there yet.
No, I agree. Well, I think yeah, it's there in the way that it can make it can make things more convenient, but it's not making your product better. So yeah.
But there are a lot like some advancements. So look at like I don't know, maybe one day we're gonna have VR sets like that Apple VR set, and we can edit that way through that. Or for our 360 cams, will the AI software get better where it can work with that 360 software inside our Premiere Pro? There will be advancements that way. Or, we have to keep on buying these plugins for effects, or we'll just be able to tell it what we want it to do, and then it will do it. I feel like that we're always going to have to keep guiding it and being in control to get what we want, it's never going to fully understand exactly what we want to do. Because I don't even understand what I want to do sometimes. Like I'll be making an edit and I'll have an effect in mind and I try it. I'm like, oh, it just doesn't work on this shot. And then I try something else, or then I put a different sound effect in and then I like it. There's trial and error. So I don't feel like the AI is going to hit it out of the park right away anyway. Like you're going to have to keep prompting it, prompting and prompting it. And by the time you do that, you might as well have just done it yourself.
And it also depends on the type of videos that you're doing. Because at the time, like right now, when you're seeing like videos that are made by AI that people love, it's like a one scene that's like, oh, I created this from scratch in AI, or I deep faked that, or I like, yeah, that's all good and well for these shots with there's like one subject and it goes for like 15 seconds. But if you're filming sports, like, yeah, it's different contexts, and yeah, it changes a lot of things, and a lot of these features are not really don't really translate to sports that much. So we'll
Well,
see.
actually, you used AI not that long ago, one of your YouTube videos. So Artlist has a new AI voiceover
No,
tool. I've used the 11 Labs one. How do you find it? Like it is still a bit robotic, but working with it, what was your takeaway?
well, so yeah, the robotic part, I kind of disagree in a sense that like, yeah, you can leave it, but well, first of all, it depends on the voice that you choose, but also if it does feel a bit robotic, you can play with the settings and it's gonna adjust like the emotion levels and things like that, and you can definitely bring it to a point where if you didn't know, and especially if you edit it so you can play with the dramatic pauses and things like that. If someone didn't know, uh, there would be no way for them to know that this is an AI generated voice. Um, so what do I feel like? I think it depends what you use it for, because like I thought for sports videography, like I said in the video, like what's interesting is, for example, if you don't have any commentary, but you want to add like a fake, someone sort of doing commentary, like just describing the play and being excited at the end and when someone score, and just to have that in your video here and there when there's a big play, that could be a very cool way to do it, and it would just be seamless. It could look like it's the real deal, especially if you add, like once you're in your edit, you add like a little old time radio type of
Reverb or
sound,
something like
yeah,
that.
something like that, to make it sound like it's like a PA system, you know what I mean? So that would be cool. Or like if you're doing like a motivational type video and you want just like a trailer type of voiceover, you can definitely do that, because until now you were limited to just basically just stealing something off YouTube and using it in your videos, where now you can actually create your own, and you don't need to pay a voice actor to do like a cool trailer voice in a world.
But,
One.
but picture it. We used to work with voiceover people. We used to
Hmm?
have voiceover people come to our office, record all our voiceover spots, and now I could just do it on AI.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
even Motion Arrays added it too now. I got an update yesterday on my Motion Array account where you
Yeah.
can upgrade it, and now they have the AI
They
version.
also
I
reached out
tried
to
it.
me, actually.
Did they?
Yeah, they asked me if I was. I still haven't responded. I'm not sure if I should have this conversation on air, but like, I'm wondering if I can, you know, make a second video about this without just. I feel like it's gonna be the same video. I don't know.
So
I'm
why don't you do
struggling with
your
the idea.
idea? Do your idea of having do it as if it's a fake commentator for your sports highlights and see how it
Oh
works
yeah,
that
that's
way.
true. Yeah, it's a good idea actually.
See?
Yeah.
See, we don't just talk about subjects; we brainstorm on this show too.
Sure.
So when E's YouTube video comes out, guys, I get all the credit. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we'll use that part of the video. Just so I'll tell you how far are we deep into this, so I can find this segment. I'll use it in the video.
There you
uh,
go. We're an hour and 4 minutes. Anyway, so back to AI and the advancements. I mean, these tools are here to help us save time and get better. Unfortunately, in sports videography, I feel like they're not there yet. Now, the generative fill, um, a lot of people have been using it for logos. So you cut out the logo, say you replace the carpet on the floor, then you have the logo drop in. The generative fill is very, very good for that stuff. Now, one of my favorite updates in Photoshop that I feel like it's always improving every model is like the subject. When you select your subject and then you can just mask them out.
Yeah,
I
true.
feel like I feel like those are always getting updated and those are
Yeah,
very, very good.
yeah. They're definitely better than they were. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are always little advancements. Now the big advancements like generative fill, like yeah, I've tried to add objects and random stuff, and I always get like a hand. Like if for some reason it's like obsessed with hands, like it just throws a hand somewhere, and you're like, but I already have two hands. I don't need a third one.
Yeah.
There are some weird things with that. Now it's getting cool though. Like it's cool that you can try to give it prompts and try to get it do things that you only imagined at one point. So I don't know. It's definitely moving forward, just not at the pace that I would like it at the moment.
Let's move on to the next thing, which is how are you staying up to date? Sorry, with new videography trends.
In our profession, I feel like you constantly have to learn new things. You're constantly evolving. So, like I mentioned it before. You watch like shows like on YouTube, like Beyond the Game, or other stuff like that. But I feel like YouTube is a great place to learn. Now you can also do stuff like Coursive or other online courses too. Online courses are great to learn, but you're always going to need to learn because the technology is moving so fast. The gear is always getting upgraded. The AI is advancing too. So you have to be willing to learn, and you have to be willing to learn from other people and try stuff too. Like there's no problem of learning with trial and error. So I feel like in this profession, you can never get comfortable because there's always a new technique, a new way, and new ideas out there. So you're always learning. At least I'm always learning. And I always try, even when I work with new people, I always try and learn from people I work with, like pick their brains about stuff or ask. Like even just the other day, home opener, our photographer's there, and I'm just, chatting with him. And I'm like, so what are your settings on right now? And I was surprised he was actually on auto white balance for the photos. And it kind of caught me off guard. But then he explained to me, he goes, like, there's so many lights right now and there's so many things. He goes, it's easier. It's my safer shot. I got to get these pictures out right away. Like these pictures are online 10 minutes from now. So he goes, I have a good editor. I trust him. I'll do an auto white balance and I know it's fast. So at that moment, he's like, I'm working for speed. So it's something that I wouldn't have thought. I thought he would have locked in his white balance and that would be the last thing that he had on automatic.
Well, I guess it's different for photos too, because you don't have to. You're not concerned about continuity like video, where like you don't want the colors to sort of shift and change as the video plays. Where photos, yeah, you don't
But
have to
I
worry
wasn't
about
thinking that. So for me, I learned something from him. I was like, oh, wow. So I'm constantly trying to, when I work on projects, pick people's brain, talk to them,
that. Yeah,
see what they're doing, see what equipment they like, see why they picked this tripod, stuff like that, and learn from other people.
yeah. No, that's a good point. That's definitely networking and talking and meeting people and having every time you're at an event where there's a minority of people with cameras in their hands, there's always going to be conversations between those people, and yeah, it's always fun. But also, like, well, to be honest, I don't really have anything to add in the sense that like it's just like you. It's just like watching YouTube, watching these gear reviews and all these announcements, and just people who do have different styles or different equipment, just going through their thing and showing you how to get it done. That's always interesting, and also just going on Instagram and TikTok and just watching content that people put out and then trying to figure out how they've done it and if they have something different than I do, and then starting saying, oh, maybe I should get into that. But like gimbals are a thing that like I never use, but I always feel like I should probably use it more. But in saying that, I was telling you the other day, like I've got IBIS in my camera, and I was using it a couple of weeks ago with like a 24 mil lens, which is super wide, and so very easy to be stable. And I realized how, yeah, with those tools, like I can get away. I was doing like a walk and not a walk and talk, but I was basically following someone just walking, and I was like, dude, to be honest, if I had a gimbal, it wouldn't have looked that much better, and it would have been a lot more work. So it's like, why would I need it? But sometimes I see a lot of dolly shots and things like that that are done with a gimbal. That I'm like, oh yeah, this is sick. And this, especially if you have like a certain transition or a certain style for your video in mind, and the gimbal is creating that whole concept. And yeah, I see videos made that way sometimes, and it inspires me to maybe go in that direction a bit more. But yeah, all that to say that inspiration definitely comes from online.
So that's where you need the DJI Pocket 3E.
Yeah, yeah,
You don't have to worry about your gimbal. Your shot's perfect all the time, buddy.
true,
Or get the Neo and it could just follow you and you could just, do those shots.
true, true.
All right. So I guess that's it for today's episode on advancements in technology. Sorry that E and I are kind of old school and we're stuck in our ways. And we talked about something that you kids don't want to hear is tape to tape editing and mini DV. And you guys are like, I don't even know what that stuff is. But that's how we learned all this stuff. And that's how we've kind of evolved. Now, before we go, I do have a question for you, E. It's multiple questions. It's from one of our viewers, Mark Archer. He wrote out, he said he loves the podcast, by the way. He thinks we're a great team. Now, he wanted to know basically about like distance covered throughout a sporting event. So I explained to him like when I'm doing NHL, I'm not really moving. Even you at basketball, you're moving from end to end, but not too crazy, right? But he says, do you have a fitness regime to support your videography efforts? And specific, do you like have a special attention required for your knees or back protection?
Well, the second part of the question, this is definitely a you question.
I'm asking you. We're not talking about me.
Yeah. I don't. I do like I'm a fairly active person, but in saying that, I spend most of my time working from home, so there's not a lot of action from my desk to the kitchen to the bathroom. That's pretty much my walking routine all day. So I do make a point of I play hockey, I play basketball, I go to the gym, I do certain things to make sure that I'm, moving around. But no, I don't have a specific regime because of my job. I would do those things with or without my job, to be honest. But but it's funny because like I've never been in a situation where I'm tired from all the walking around. It's more if I have like a big rig, like your arms can be tired at the end of the day, something like that. Um, and it's funny because I was filming football this weekend, and I think the most important things it's more reflexes because I've seen a lot of people got run into that day, and I wasn't one. I could have been one of them, and I wasn't. A couple of times was really close, and I realized like it's more about yeah, like a lot of people freeze in those situations, like in even in car crashes and things like that. When like danger is coming straight at you, a lot of people just freeze, and that's when they just get rammed.
Yeah.
But where I sort of assess the situation, I don't panic. I just assess it. And it's always weird because they're always coming at an angle. So you're like, am I better to go left or right? And then I just wait it out. In the last second, I just whoop, and it's like the bull, like at those. I just
So you're
sort
good
of
at
let them.
sidestepping people. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. So that's I'd say is probably the most physical part of my day when I'm filming is just making sure I don't get hit by football players when I'm filming from the sidelines. Because especially that those sidelines where I was this weekend, there's us, and then after that, instead of putting like metal sort of you know barriers or whatever, it's like a inflatable thing so that when the players hit it, they don't hurt themselves. So because they know that that's there, it's like it's a they basically jump into it like they look sort of excited to just like go all in and just I'm just gonna jump into this thing and it's gonna be mushy. But between that thing and them, there's us. So it's always like that they're not slowing down thinking, oh, there's people. They're like, oh yeah, cool, I'll just jump. But so yeah. Anyway, all that to say that that's the most physical part, I'd say, of filming a football game is just always being on your toes and being able to sidestep and jump out of the way at the last second. But to actually answer the question, no, I don't really. I make sure that I'm in shape, and I do work on my back at the gym. But to be honest, it's not because of my work. It's just because I'm tall, and that I know that if I have a weak lower back, I'm definitely gonna pay for it one day. My dad and my big brother have back problems, so I'm the smartest of the family.
So I'll take a stab at the question. Unfortunately, last year was the first year where I felt like my age slowly caught up with me after doing like 1,000 NHL games.
Hmm.
So I had a bad back for
Humble
half the
brag.
season. Yeah, I'm humble brag there. Um, my back was in bad shape last season to the point where I had to go to physio like twice a month from like January till April. And then when the season was over, my back pain went away because I have like a 30-pound camera on my shoulder throughout the game. And sometimes, depending on who's sitting beside you, I don't get to sit in my chair. I'm kind of over to the side because if they're a little bigger on one side or the other. So that's how I tweaked it. So now I have like a stretching regime that I do every day. And especially on game days, I do stretching. So it's not something that I thought I would have to do, but it's definitely something that's helped me. And honestly, stretching has changed my life. Like my back doesn't hurt. And like this is a busy week where I had like 3 games or 4 games in 7 days. But stretching, I can still feel a little tension in my back, but stretching has definitely relieved that stress, and it's making sure that I'm able to film more games and be more productive. So stretching is definitely key for me. Now he had one more question, E, and this one's interesting too. Is how do you guys avoid fatigue in the editing process? Because we've all been there. You know, you got a bunch of projects. Either you got a mind block or you're just tired. How do you avoid getting in that?
Yeah, that's definitely something that I can relate to. I think it's easy once you've done it for a while, especially if it's always the a similar concept, a similar type of video that you're doing over and over. At some point, you feel like you're just, it becomes like a template, really. Like you're just doing the same thing, and you're always starting your videos the same way, and looking for the same type of music, and all these different things. So it's easy to just lose motivation and just not have that excitement and that creativity that you used to have. So yeah, the key is to reinvent yourself and trying to try new things. Just don't get set in your ways. And if you feel like, yeah, you've been doing the thing, those videos the same way every single time, then it's time to do it a new way, and trying to incorporate new things into your videos that are gonna make you think differently, work differently, and just mix it up, change it up, maybe even move away from sports for like try to do something different just to get that. I remember like when we were working together, like I was doing almost exclusively music stuff at the start. And when I say music stuff, like ads for concerts and things like that, and like just moving into the hockey more and more, and telling a story, because ads will only be like 15-20 seconds ad spots. So when you're always doing like 15-20 second video, and then all of a sudden you get the chance to do like a 2 minute sort of small like feature or documentary on something, it's like, wow, I get to tell a story. And it's just so just different way of looking at things, a different way of editing. And so if you're always doing the same type of video that's always like, let's say, action over music, then maybe do something that has a bit more, like do a few interviews before after the game, and try to do more of a documentary style video, and try to change it up that way. Like just try to tell the story a different way, do a different concept, all these things, and take breaks as well. Like you're taking a bit of a break. The bye weeks are not just for athletes; they're for videographers as well. So take a break here and there, and yeah, that helps.
That's a great answer. Look, making yourself look at it differently. Honestly, what I do when I'm fatigued of editing, like actual the physical editing, I'll take a full day off. Like one full day. I know maybe if you have a tight deadline, you can't, but I'd rather take a full day off and not do any editing that day than do a half-assed edit. But the next day when I return, I'm blocking time. Like, hey, this project, I'm giving myself the 4 hours in the morning to get this done. And then the afternoon, I'm going to work on this project. And I feel like, me personally, when I work against a deadline or a time constraint that I've given myself, I'm more productive. I'm more focused. I get in the zone, I call it, like when you're editing and you're like, yeah, and everything's going. And you know what? I put away my phone, I close my office door, and I get my work done, because it's so easy to get distracted. I do it all the time, especially, working from home. I'll edit something for 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'll get a glass of water. Oh, the doorbell rang. Oh, what's happening over here? And you got to just stay focused. It's too easy to get distracted. And those distractions are what burn you out too, because sometimes you spend 8 hours, editing projects all day, but guess what? You probably only edited like 2 hours that day because you got distracted the other 6. So blocking time, putting away my phone, giving myself a deadline, it helps me focus. It helps me stay fresh. But I've also make sure that I know not to get burnt out and take a full day off where I'm not opening up my Premiere Pro that day. I'm taking the day away from my computer, and I feel like for me personally, that really, really helps.
No, good points.
Now, I can't do it every day. There's days where I like to not be on my Premiere Pro when I am. But hey, the days that I can, that's what you do.
No, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope that answered your questions. And I hope we, shed some light on new technology and how to stay relevant. And we're not as old as we sound, okay, guys? We're I'm really sorry we talked about tapes again.
I had my gray hair on my chin with the microphone. So
That's it. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of A Game Day Glare. See ya.